Hello folks, I hope that you're having just a great day and keeping yourself safe in our modern COVID world today. Today I'm going to take a look at the Nameless City. The Nameless City is written by H.P. Lovecraft in 1921. It's early on in his writing career, so I want to take a look at it. A lot of people think that this is the first Cthulhu Mythos story, although as I've already argued in a story previously, I actually think it's the doom that came to Sarnath. We'll talk about why a little bit later in this story. I'll actually link you to my video that just came a few days ago and a few videos ago, where I look at what are the arguments for the different stories and why the Nameless City is considered one of them, and by many fans to be the first story, and why I disagree with them. And I actually think it's a story that was a year earlier, the doom that came to Sarnath. That's my argument. And again, so we'll go over the Nameless City for you here and kind of talk a little bit about it, do a little bit of a synopsis of it for you and so forth. Now, this story is sometimes collected in his dream stuff. My copy of this in paper is in this copy, Dreams of Terror and Death, as published by Del Rey. I'll actually link you to this collection in the comments below in case you want to purchase it and read along with me in an actual print type font. Since most of H.P. Lovecraft stuff has expired for his copyright, I'll also link you to a free copy online so you can just read it for free if that's what you would prefer, and reading it online. I'll give you both options. So here in my book, this is, it's pretty deeply in here. It's about page 50, starts on page 55 and it goes to 66. So it's about 10 pages in this large, oversized book. Probably means it probably 50 pages. I've read it 3 times now. I've enjoyed it every time, and I do think it's very strongly written. So let's go ahead and kind of get started with some of what the Nameless City is about. There's not a whole lot of stuff that happens, so I'm not going to spend too much time with the synopsis for you. In it, we open up in the Arabian Desert. In the Arabian Desert, we're going to meet our main protagonist, who is seeking for this ancient city and the ruins thereof. He comes across the ruins, although he does come across it at nighttime. He decides to wait until the day, but some odd weather, some odd lights, an unusually specific sandstorm start to creep up, begin to cause some trepidations, but he decides to go ahead and penetrate the Nameless City, this ancient city in the Arabian Desert, which just him and his camel are at. And that's pretty much the first few pages. And I don't want to get you in too far, but what's going to happen? What happens when he starts to explore the desert and the deserted city, the ruins thereof, and its antediluvian inhabitants. So I do like this story. I give it a 7 out of 10. It's Lovecraft early on. Sometimes there are some issues. Sometimes in his earlier stuff, he spends more time describing things than showing things. He hasn't learned that yet. And that is a trick of the craft that he won't learn until later on in his writing career. The Doom That Came to Sarnath has that a lot more. It probably has 2 or 3 pages that are just full description, that don't add to the story, that don't do anything, and it's just a 6-page story. And so he does that a lot with a lot of his stories. And so there are some places where I think he does, although again it's 10 pages long in my collection, so it's not going to take you that long to read it. It's 15-20 minutes to read. So I won't spend too much time talking about it, because you could spend more time talking about it than you would actually reading it. And that would be silly to do. Again, the Nameless City is considered the first Cthulhu Mythos story by a lot of fans and scholars. And I disagree with them, but it is. And one of the major reasons that it is because this is the appearance of the first major elements of the Cthulhu mythos, namely the mad Arab Ahab Alhazred and his famous couplet, that which is will not die, which is in this case referring to the Nameless City itself. Later on, that couplet will be introduced in the Call of Cthulhu, and will be one of the, which is the sort of the major story that sets the Cthulhu mythos up and becomes its sort of ruling specter from which everybody else follows sort of along the lines that it lays, and it lays. So it has that sort of an element to it because it introduces that couplet. That's a key part of the Call of Cthulhu. It also introduces Ahab Alhazred, which we'll find out in the next book that I'll be reviewing for you, The Hound, where he actually was the writer of the Necronomicon. So I'll give you The Hound next, and I've already reviewed the Doom That Came to Sarnath with you. It was the most recent version. But the reason why I don't think it's the first Cthulhu Mythos work, even though it is the first work that has in it the major elements of the Cthulhu mythos is because it borrows from the doom that came to Sarnath. And because it borrows from the doom that came to Sarnath elements from it, not writing style or something like that, but literal elements from that story, it can't be the first mythos story if it's borrowing elements from another story. That story that it's borrowing from has to be the first, by definition. So to my mind, the Nameless City has to be the better city for it. Now, this story reminds me actually of Robert E. Howard's The Fire of Asshurbanipal, which I've actually reviewed for you. It's also set in the Cthulhu mythos. He was also writing for Weird Tales at the same time as Lovecraft was considered one of the big three writers. I've actually reviewed that for you. It's also a Cthulhu mythos story. It's also set in an Arabian desert in an ancient ruined city. So I'll actually link you to that in my comments below in case you want to check that out, that story out as well in my review thereof. Now, again, this is in my Dreamlands collection. I'm not sure it's in the Dreamlands. The Doom that came to Sarnath definitely is a Dreamland story, and this name calls it. But this is set in Arabia. I don't know that I would actually consider it to be properly in the Dreamlands proper, although it's usually considered to be such. In the Dreamlands were H.P. Lovecraft's early attempt to sort of incorporate Lord Dunsany's ideas, style of writing, style of reading, and so forth into it. Now, I do think that this is a solid 7 out of 10. It does avoid words that Lovecraft will use a lot later on in the mythos, like cyclopean for large, or referring to ruins as being formed from non-Euclidean geometry and so forth. Because he doesn't name check some of those phrases that he has used, that he will in other places, I do think that this is actually fresher than some of his other works. So I do like it. It's a nice change of pace. Also, getting to the Arabian desert and ancient ruined city is different than sort of the normal New England jaded stuff that we'll get from H.P. Lovecraft. So and the Cthulhu mythos. So he gets this out of the normal style. So I really do like it as a nice place to go, a nice diversion, an interesting place. He writes it well, despite his age. Although again, he'll do more telling than showing, which is something he should work on. But this is an incredibly well done story, and I'll go ahead and leave you to it, because again, I don't want to spend too much time on a story that's only 10 pages long. Have you read The Nameless City? What did you think of it? Did you agree or disagree with anything that I mentioned here in my video? I'd be more than happy to talk about you with it in the comments below. If you like this video, please feel encouraged to hit that subscribe button. There's going to be so many more of these to follow. And finally, hey, I just want to thank you for taking some time out of your day and watching my video. It's incredibly humbling that you spend some time with me when you have so many things happening in your lives and getting pulled in so many different directions. So thanks again, and I really do appreciate it.